This video is a video of the solutions to the handout in Blackboard for Chapter 4 in MTB 1370. The first problem we'll look at is converting 22 pounds to a certain number of kilograms. Now, in order to do any of these problems, you're going to have to know the equivalents that we have discussed. So in this problem, we begin with 22 pounds. We're going to times that by a unit fraction with pounds in the denominator because we want it to divide out, and kilograms in the numerator. Now, in our unit fraction, whatever we put in the numerator has to be equivalent to what we write in the denominator. So in this case, we have memorized that 1 kilogram is 2.2 pounds. And the reason we wanted pounds in the denominator is so the pounds will divide out. And when we multiply straight across, we get 22 over 2.2, and the units that remain will be the kilograms. And when you divide that, you'll get 10 kilograms. 22 divided by 2.2 is 10. So our answer is 10 kilograms. Now for the second problem, we begin with milliliters and we have to convert to pints. So in order to do that conversion, we have to know an equivalent or an approximate equivalent between milliliters and pints. So again, start with what you're given, which would be 600 milliliters. Multiply that by a unit fraction with milliliters in the denominator and pints on the top. One way you could do this is you could just recall that 1 pint was approximately 500 milliliters because 1 cup was approximately 250 milliliters and a pint is 2 cups. So we could say that 1 pint is 500 milliliters. If you wanted to use the slightly more accurate 480 milliliters, you could do that as well. The milliliters will divide out, and we get 600 divided by 500. So 600 divided by 500. And it's in pints, so 600 divided by 500, and that's in pints now. Pints remains. And divide both by 100, you get 6/5. We don't like to write it as an improper fraction, so we convert it to a mixed number, and that would be 1 1/5 pints. Since that is the household system, we would prefer a fraction over a decimal unless it was a really nasty fraction. But 1 1/5 is a pretty simple mixed fraction. So our answer is 1 1/5 pints. Next one, it deals with length, 8 centimeters. And we want to convert that to inches. So what we want to keep, we would put in the numerator. What we want to divide out, we put in the denominator. And we know that an inch is longer than a centimeter. And matter of fact, we know that 1 inch is 2.5 or 2.54 centimeters. In this class, you can either use 1 inch is 2.5 centimeters as an approximate, or use the exact 1 inch is 2.54 centimeters. So if we take 8 and we divide it by 2.5, so 8 divided by 2.5, we would get 3.2. 3.2. But since it's inches, we generally do not leave it as a decimal. Decimals are for the metric system. That's 2/10, which is 1/5. So that's 3 1/5 inches. So 8 divided by 2.5. The next example has grams into ounces. So we start with something in the metric system, which is grams, which is okay to have decimals, and we convert it to ounces. There's various ways that you could do this problem. If you knew the direct conversion from grams to ounces, you could go that approach. Or if you wanted to go the longer approach, you could convert your grams into kilograms, your kilograms into pounds, and then your pounds into ounces. That's a long way to go about it, but let's try that since it might be a little bit more challenging. Now, when we're converting grams to kilograms, we would divide by 1,000. So if we divide by 1,000, we get 0.15625 kilograms. Now, if we want to convert that to pounds, we got to times that by a unit fraction with kilograms on bottom and pounds on top. And there are 2.2 pounds for every 1 kilogram. So if we go 0.15625 and times that by 2.2, our kilograms would divide out and we would get 0.34375 pounds. But our answer wants ounces. But we know in a pound there are 16 ounces. So we would have to take 0.34375. We wouldn't want to round until the very end. That's in pounds. We want to times that by there are 16 ounces in 1 pound. The pounds would divide out. We're timesing by 16. We get 5.5. And since it's in ounces, we'd write it as 5.5 ounces. The much faster way to get there, instead of going from grams to kilograms to pounds to ounces, is knowing that approximately there are 30 grams in every 1 ounce. So if we took 156.25 grams and times that by a unit fraction with grams on the bottom and ounces on the top, in every 1 ounce there are 30 grams approximately. So the grams would divide out, and then you'd have 156.25 divided by 30, and you get 5.208 blah 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 blah. So again, the long way that we went would be acceptable if I followed all your work, or the shortcut way, which will give us a slightly different answer because we used an approximate, would be 5.20833 ounces, which is roughly 5 2/10, which is roughly 5 1/5. So if I followed your work, I would accept either 5.5 or 5 1/5 ounces. For problem 5, we're converting fluid ounces to milliliters. That's a common one. So we would take 17 fluid ounces and we times that by fluid ounces in the denominator and milliliters in the numerator. And we know 1 fluid ounce, which is a medicine cup, is approximately 30 milliliters. So when we multiply, the fluid ounces divide out, and 17 times 30, I believe, is 510 milliliters. 45 ounces to kilograms. Now we discussed this on, I believe it was problem 4. We could take our 45 ounces we could convert that to pounds. We know there are 16 ounces in a pound. Got to make sure you get those in the right order. And that would give us 45 divided by 16, which is 2.8125 pounds. And then if you wanted to convert that to kilograms, you would put pounds in the denominator and kilograms in the numerator. And there are 2.2 pounds for every 1 kilogram. So again, the units of pounds would divide out, and we'd have 2.8125 divided by 2.2 since it's in the denominator, and we would get roughly 1.278409091 kilograms. And recall, it's in the metric system, and so it's okay to have a decimal. And what I would do is just read the directions, and if there was any specified number of places to round to, you got to make sure that you follow that. Number 7, teaspoons to milliliters. So we start with 10 teaspoons. We times that by a unit fraction with teaspoons in the denominator, milliliters in the numerator. For every 1 teaspoon, that's equivalent to 5 mLs. Recall that a tablespoon was 15 mLs. The teaspoons divide out, multiply straight across, we get 50 milliliters as our answer. Next problem, we're given a problem with milligrams. We want to convert it to pounds. We know a conversion from kilograms to pounds, so we would convert milligrams to kilograms. And if you remember, King Henry died by drinking chocolate milk. So to convert milligrams to kilograms, we're going all the way from the milk all the way to King to the left. That's 6 places. So that's like dividing by 1,000 2 times, dividing by like 1,000,000. So what's going to happen is the decimal's right here right now, but it's going to go 3 units to the left to get to the base unit, and then 3 more units left to get to kilograms. So that would be 0. Make sure you include the leading 0. 0.075 kilograms. And remember, that is using the King Henry died by drinking chocolate milk. Milk helps us remember the prefix milli, which is what we have here. And we want to go all the way to kilo, which is where the king is at. So we have to move the decimal 6 places to the left, which is like dividing by 1,000 2 times. And now to convert that to pounds, kilograms has to be in the denominator, pounds has to be in the numerator. And we know there are 2.2 pounds in 1 kilogram, so we divide out the kilograms, and our answer would be 0.075 times 2.2, which is 0.165, which is 165 thousandths, and then you reduce that. So if you had 165 over 1,000, that reduces to 33 over 200. Now, the reason we wrote it as a fraction is because it was the household system for pounds. Now, typically in a problem like this, 33 over 200 is not meaningful to many people, so you will see it written as a decimal, even though it is the household system, because that is not a nice common fraction like 1/4 or a half or a third. Last one on this slide is 2 quarts converted to milliliters. So we start off with 2 quarts. Now, if you don't have that memorized directly, you could do a sequence of conversions. You could convert your quarts into pints, because there are 2 pints in every 1 quart. And then once you got to pints, you could convert your pints into cups, since there are 2 cups in every 1 pint. And then the pints would divide out. And then, since you want milliliters, you could convert your cups to milliliters. 1 cup is approximately 250 milliliters. 240 is a little bit more accurate, but the book allows you to use 250, so I'll accept both answers. So the answer is 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8, times 250, which is 2,000 milliliters for that problem. 2,000 milliliters. because it's 2 times 2 times 2 times 250. On the last page, we have 5 more problems. The first one is a basic one. You're converting inches to centimeters. So we start off with 27 inches, and we times that by a unit fraction. Inches on bottom, centimeters on top, and 1 inch is, you could write 2.5 or 2.54. Since I'm converting to centimeters, the metric system, I'm going to use the decimals, 2.54, a little bit more decimals, a little bit more accurate. It's exact. 27 times 2.54. The inches divide out, you get 68.58. Okay, next one, we're converting 45 milliliters into tablespoons this time. So recall what we said earlier, 1 tablespoon is 15 mLs, because recall 2 tablespoons is 30 mLs, which is a 1 ounce medicine cup. So one tablespoon is only 15 mLs. It's like half a medicine cup. The mLs divide out. You're left with tablespoons, and 45 divided by 15 is 3. 3 tablespoons. Converting cups into liters, a variety of ways to do this. Probably the simplest way is to realize what we said before, that a quart is approximately a liter. So a quart. So if we converted our cups into quarts, then that will be the same as the number of liters, at least approximately the same. So 24 cups times that by a unit fraction with cups on the bottom and quarts on the top. So a quart is the larger unit, so write 1 quart. And you know 1 quart is 2 pints, and each pint is 2 cups, so a quart is 4 cups, because 1 quart is 2 pints, but each one of those pints is 2 cups. So 2 times 2 is 4. If you multiply that out, the cups divide out, and you get 24 divided by 4, which is 6 quarts, which is approximately 6 liters. There is a longer way to do that problem as well, converting your cups into milliliters and then your milliliters into liters, but you would still get approximately 6 liters as your answer. Let's clean this up a little bit. On the next problem, we have length 36 inches converted to meters. We don't have a direct conversion memorized, but we can convert our inches to centimeters, then our centimeters to meters. So 36 inches times that by a unit fraction with inches in the denominator, centimeters in the numerator. There's 2.54 centimeters in 1 inch, so that would take away the inches. And then we have to convert it to meters. So let's convert our centimeters to meters. And we know there are 100 centimeters in 1 meter. So the centimeters now would divide out. So if we multiply and divide straight across, we get 36 times 2.54. And then we take that answer and we divide it by 100 because we want to convert our centimeters to meters. And we get 0.9144. Remember, if it's a decimal between 0 and 1, that leading 0 is crucial. You have to include the leading 0 if you have a value between 0 and 1. And if it tells you to round your answers to a certain number of decimal places, do that. Otherwise, keep it as 0.9144. The last problem has us convert 1 fluid ounce to teaspoons, and you might have that memorized, or you might not. So if you had 1 fluid ounce, you could, if you wanted to, just know that that's 6 teaspoons, or you could know that if you have a fluid ounce. You have fluid ounces in the denominator. And tablespoons in the numerator. And you may know that 2 tablespoons is 1 fluid ounce. And then the fluid ounces would divide out. And then you could convert your tablespoons to teaspoons, knowing that there are 3 teaspoons in 1 tablespoon. And then the tablespoons would divide out. And you would get 1 times 2 times 3, which would be 6 teaspoons is your answer.